Hello, my name is Sean, and today I'm going to be talking about Star Wars, not Ahsoka, not The Mandalorian, not the sequels, Star Wars, The High Republic. Now, before you switch away and before you be like, oh, this is stupid, I'm not going to watch this, listen. One of the big reasons why I'm doing this is because I feel like there's no decent coverage of this thing in terms of bias. Everything's biased. All I see are good reviews, which are all shills, it looks like. Just people who will just like anything that's Disney, Star Wars, or The High Republic, and people who hate it and haven't read any of it. Um, Look, I feel like this segment of Star Wars is kind of fascinating in that like it's sheer hubris, but also it's a whole chunk of content about a whole undiscovered, like untouched era of Star Wars, at least Disney Star Wars, and I was interested in reading it, and I haven't seen any decent, solid reviews that are like down the middle of what this is and their impressions of it. And so that's why I'm here today. Now, the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to tell you my experiences with Star Wars, what kind of a fan I am. I'm going to tell you what the High Republic was, or still is. This recording is being done on the eve of Phase 3 of the High Republic. Then I'm going to talk about why I read the High Republic, why I even dived into it in the first place. And then I'm going to talk about all the different things I read. So I didn't read all of the High Republic because that's, as you're going to see, that's almost impossible to do, and that's one of the problems. But I did read 5 books and 2 whole comic series, and took a look at the other stuff and was like, so I'll talk about all that stuff and the characters and the concepts and stories and everything, and then I'll get into it. I'll talk about what's good, because there are some good things, and what's not so good, which, whoo, that's a whole chapter. So let's get into it. Star Wars, The High Republic. My history of Star Wars is that I was born in 1977, about a week after the official premiere of Star Wars. Back then, though, that didn't really matter. It's not like movies came and went in a 7-week window. If something was really, really popular, it ran in theaters for literally years. And I was born right into the hype of the original trilogy. I don't know what the first time I saw Star Wars was, but I saw it many, many times before Empire Strikes Back came out. Empire Strikes Back came out when I was about 3 or so. And I know I saw Empire in the theater because I remember it. It's some of my earliest memories, sitting on my mom's lap because there were people too tall in front of me. They didn't have stadium seating back then. This is a different era, guys. I remember Star Wars just always being there. It was always on TV. And it was such a cultural flash of lightning. You know, schools would show Star Wars, so I saw Star Wars at school as well. You know, the original Star Wars. I'm calling the original Star Wars because that's what the movie was called. It wasn't called A New Hope. That's the way it is. I'm old. So you know, I love Star Wars. I had all the figures. I had maybe about 2/3 of the line from my parents. I also had some great vehicles. I had the Rebel ship from Empire Strikes Back. A lot of my toys come from Empire. Empire was huge, despite what people say that people were disappointed with it. No one was disappointed by Empire. It was awesome. And everyone played Star Wars at recess. Return of the Jedi was big. I remember watching that way up north in Ontario, visiting an aunt and uncle and my cousins up there, and we all went to see it. All the stuff looked like just next level compared to everything else. I always wondered why no one could duplicate it. And people tried, you know, with Tron and Last Starfighter and everything, but nothing could match the energy and the swashbuckling adventure and the music and the visuals and the feel of Star Wars. I was totally into it. I had more Star Wars toys than other toys. It was the golden age of, like, crazy toy franchises in the 80s, Transformers, G.I. Joe, and stuff like that. I followed anything that was Star Wars. I bought the comics on and off as a kid. I took them for granted as just always gonna be there, and then of course they went away in 1986. Also in 86, 85, 86, around there were the Saturday morning cartoons. I loved droids, I loved Ewoks, I loved them. They were cool. I liked droids more because it felt more Star Wars-y to me. It wasn't like, like a bunch of Ewoks in a forest somewhere. It was spaceships and blasters and robots. It was, and aliens and all that stuff. And sometimes there were cameos by characters from the original trilogy, like, Boba Fett, of course, IG-88. Some of the characters from Jabba's palace. The band was there. It was awesome. I loved the Ewoks movies. I still do. I know, like, objectively, they're probably not the greatest lavish productions of all time, and somehow Wilford Brimley is, like, fighting an alien and defeating it somehow. I don't know. But they're awesome. They have that early Star Wars adventure feel to them. I love them. Of course, there was the Dark Ages after 86. There wasn't a lot of Star Wars happening, and I eventually discovered the little novels, like the Lando Calrissian trilogy. Those were great. And up until the 90s, there wasn't a lot. But then in the early 90s, of course, the Thrawn trilogy came out, the Timothy Zahn books, and I ate them up. I read the first one. I didn't like it. I thought it was a bit too Wile E. Coyote. There's just a series of, like, attacks and escapes. I don't know. It didn't feel like I could see the movie in my head if it were to be a movie. It's grown on me over the years. The second book was an improvement. It was different and weird. The whole lineage of Princess Leia and her ties to, I can't remember the name of the aliens. It was the Mogri. Was that what they were? I'll put up a correction if I'm wrong. And the third book was awesome. It was like Return of the Jedi. It was like a bunch of, like, dogfights and showdowns. It was wicked, and Luke fighting clone Luke and everything is great. So, I mean, that trilogy grew on me over the years. Of course, I read the Dark Horse comics. So to me, the Thrawn trilogy was episodes like 7, 8, 9. And then there's Dark Empire, which is another trilogy after that, where Luke tries to join the dark side, to change the dark side, doesn't work out. Stuff like that. Loved all that stuff. Followed it on and off, like, casually. Was disappointed when they killed Chewbacca, in the EU. What else? I mean, when Disney was going to make the Star Wars movies, I was excited. I'm not a big fan of J.J. Abrams from a long time ago, so I was a little apprehensive. And I mean, the movie is safe, but it's not doing new things. And I think we all felt the sting. The prequels, I didn't like them. Just like every other brat that grew up with the original trilogy. But hey, I mean, they've really grown on me over the years, especially the parallels with the Knights Templar and everything. And there's no movie that looks like those things. They have that visual splendor and that energy to them that only George Lucas could really bring, as we've seen in recent years. The sequels, yeah, I mean, I mentioned the sequels that, listen, that first one was a Force Awakens, was just okay, but I always gravitate to the prequels and the original trilogy. And then Last Jedi lost the script, and I felt it was more vandalism than movie. It doesn't even make sense within itself. And the what was it called? The Rise of Skywalker is one of the ugliest looking Star Wars movies. Everything's in a cave or something. It's awful. Didn't like Solo. I thought it was middling, and once again, shot like it's lit by Duracell flashlights. Everything's dark. Rogue One was okay. It's okay. Yeah, and the TV series, I mean, I like the first two seasons of Mando. I think I'm paralleling most Star Wars fans. I like the first two seasons of Mando, and that's where it ends for me. Then, like, there's season 3, I couldn't even get through that. I couldn't get past the first episode of Andor. Resistance, which everyone's forgotten. I tried watching it. It's boring. And it's funny because you can't even say it's boring because it's for kids, because I loved the Lego Star Wars Freemaker Adventures and Lego Star Wars All-Stars. Those were pretty cool and had a little, revolutionary feel of their own. It's pretty neat, But yeah, and Obi-Wan, I thought, broke Star Wars. Is awful. How do you have a show that's 6 episodes and you have to repeat your own plot because you don't have enough material? It's like Leia gets kidnapped like twice in that show. 6 episodes. And I haven't seen Ahsoka yet and everything, but there you have it. That's my Star Wars. In a nutshell, I mean, there's a lot more. One thing I want to say too is one thing that Star Wars did bring to me is a love of world mythology, and how that mythology, wherever you are in the world, wherever it comes from, whatever color, creed, whatever geography in the world, all of the mythology that we have might be different, but it's also the same in that they talk about the same points of humanity, and have the same sort of revolving like patterns and everything. And that's what Star Wars, I feel, brought to the general public. I mean, I think maybe some people knew about the hero's journey and stuff like that before Star Wars, but I feel like Star Wars brought that to the modern lexicon of how we talk about stories and everything. I feel like that's a key part and a core to the heart of Star Wars, which I feel a lot of people don't understand when they make Star Wars things. So it's disappointing, but that's just the way it is. Star Wars: The High Republic. Now, what is the High Republic, you might ask? So basically, Disney had destroyed all EU, erased it all, and what the EU is basically it's short for expanded universe. Beyond the movies and everything, there were the comics and the novels, etc. Lots and lots of novels, and they also, and even the role-playing games, they all sort of formed a Star Wars mythology beyond the films that was still like in continuity with all of itself. So people followed along, and to many people, Luke Skywalker, after Return of the Jedi, goes on to marry Mara Jade, right? And have kids, and Leia and Han have like 3 kids, so twins and another kid, etc., etc., right? So that's what happens after Return of the Jedi for most people. All of that was done away with, including anything that came before Star Wars, like before the timeline. So like Knights of the Old Republic is gone. It's all gone, right? So what they wanted to do at Disney is create a new continuity. So they created something called the High Republic. This era takes place hundreds of years before the Clone Wars and everything. And it's basically the Jedi's golden age. That's what they call it. And the golden age of the Jedi can be anything. So that's the premise, that they can do anything with this. It's awesome. It's hundreds of years before, so not a lot of the characters are there, so brand new characters. This is going to be the High Republic. Now, this was all a publishing initiative rather than movies and TV, but they promised to springboard off of this into television and film, etc. And this would be basically, and I'll mention this would be the new Disney Star Wars legacy, right? This would be laid down for future generations to play in and everything. So the High Republic, I have a list, I have notes about this. The publishing program for this was very extensive, very ambitious, kind of crazy for like characters you've never heard of and a whole thing. I feel like they felt, well, it's the same with most things with Star Wars. I feel like they felt people would just buy it because it's Star Wars, right? So the High Republic was going to be split up among 3 phases. Phase 1 was going to be the Light of the Jedi. That's what it's called. Phase 2 is Quest of the Jedi. And Phase 3 is Trials of the Jedi. Now, each phase has waves in it. So Phase 1 was very ambitious. And I feel like they felt they're going to keep that momentum up with the rest of the phases. So Phase 1, you ready for this? So Wave 1 consisted of an adult novel, so a longer book, a young adult novel, a middle page range book, a junior novel, so like a more scholastic, like, you know, like kids book, a young reader, which is a baby book basically. It's like a little golden book. 2 ongoing comics from Marvel. Well, one's from Marvel and one's from IDW. It's High Republic and High Republic Adventures was from IDW, and High Republic was from Marvel Comics. And 3 serialized short stories that were woven through Star Wars Insider magazine. So that's just Wave 1. Wave 2 was 1 adult novel again, 1 young adult novel, 1 junior novel, 1 young reader again, a little baby book, 2 comic miniseries in addition to the ongoing series still going. So the 2 comic miniseries for Wave 2 of Phase 1 were Trail of Shadows and Monster of Temple Peak. And once again, 2 more serialized short stories in Star Wars Insider and 1 audio drama. So that's just Wave 2 of Phase 1. You're expected to read all this. So Wave 3 consisted of, once again, 1 adult novel, 1 young adult novel, 1 junior novel, 1 young reader, and 2 more comics miniseries in addition to the ongoing series still going. The 2 comic miniseries were Eye of the Storm and, I kid you not, Galactic Bake Off Spectacular. I don't know. So there you have it. That was Phase 1. Phase 2 was the Quest of Jedi, so it's coming to a close soon as of this recording. Phase 2, they pared things down to 2 waves. You can start to see the trouble here. Wave 1 was 1 young adult novel. I think that was what kicked it off rather than the adult novel. An adult novel, a junior novel, 2 ongoing comics. So those are Volume 2 of High Republic and High Republic Adventures. 2 miniseries comics in addition to those ongoing series comics. The Blade and The Nameless Terror. And 4 serialized short stories. This is still Wave 1. Those short stories are serialized through Star Wars Insider. They're either 2 magazines you have to buy to complete them, or sometimes they're one-offs. And 1 audio drama, Battle of Jeddah. So that was Phase 1. No, sorry, Phase 2, Wave 1. Phase 2, Wave 2 was 1 adult novel, 1 young adult novel, 1 junior novel, Quest of the Jedi one-shot comic. This is in addition to the ongoing 2 High Republic comic series. And 2 short stories in Star Wars Insider. So that was Wave 2 of Phase 2. If for Phase 3, they're getting rid of all the baby books. I don't even know why they had those. It's sort of pared down. You could see that Phase 2 was pared down. But Phase 3 forthcoming will be pared down a bit, but still have, I think it's still 3 adult novels, 3 young adult novels, 3 junior novels, which to me are the main thing. And likely a new comic series, probably a volume 3 of High Republic and High Republic Adventures, perhaps. Looks to me like only High Republic's coming out. I don't know. I'll have to see. As of this recording, I repeat, Phase 3 hasn't happened yet. So, of these books, I read Light of the Jedi, which was the adult novel from Phase 1, Wave 1. Into the Dark, which was the young adult novel from Phase 1, Wave 1. A Test of Courage, which was the junior novel from Wave 1 of Phase 1. Then after that, I gave up reading the young adult novels and junior novels and just said I'm reading Rising Storm, which is the second adult novel from Phase 2, and the third adult novel from Phase 3 was The Fallen Star. I also read the entire 15-issue Volume 1 ongoing High Republic comic books from Marvel. So let's get into those. I'll talk about each one of these pieces individually and give you a sense, and then I'm going to review the whole thing. So I got my notes here. So, Light of the Jedi. This was the first book to come out for Wave 1, Phase 1. On the cover, it has Avar Kriss and a bunch of other Jedi in it. People were triggered immediately by Avar Kriss, and it's going to be a Mary Sue and all this stuff. The problem with the main novels, I call them the main novels, the adult novels. To me, those should be the main novels. The problem with those books is that there's no main character. It's huge. That's a huge problem. I'll get into negatives later, but I gotta mention that up front. Because if you want to read about Avar Kriss or some of the other characters in those adult novels, you're out of luck. They rotate around to other characters, and you don't really get a sense of characters and their stories. You really have to latch on to one or two, and I think that might have been the point. So here's what Light of the Jedi is about. The High Republic Phase 1 is overall about the Jedi fighting this gang called the Nihil. So in Light of the Jedi, the Nihil attack a ship while it's in hyperdrive by plowing through the hyperdrive lane, because in this universe, in this version of Star Wars, there are hyperdrive highway type of things where everyone agrees that they'll travel those hyper ways. They collide their ship against just a regular Star Cruiser, and the problem is that Star Cruiser has now been destroyed in hyperspace, so all of the debris is hyperspeeding and like warping and teleporting into planets and like solar systems and like destroying planets and solar systems and stuff like that. And it's difficult to figure out where this debris is going to go. Meanwhile, the Jedi don't know about the Nihil yet. So the Jedi come to figure out the problem and a solution to it. And they're evacuating planets, and they're protecting planets, and they're trying to figure out mathematically like where this debris is going to end up in various solar systems, etc., throughout the galaxy. While all this is going on, so that's basically the first half. While all this is going on, the Nihil are a sort of structured, it's sort of a corporate, like a bunch of bad guys, but they're slovenly gang a-holes, but they have this hierarchy. I shouldn't say corporate. They have a hierarchy where they're trying to climb up and become the head person. Marchion Ro is the leader of these people, and his secret is that he calls himself the Eye. He's the one that knows how to navigate in and out of these hyperways. And in so doing, he's the most powerful. He knows how to go in and out of a hyperway the way other ships can't, and that's how they collided with this other ship. But his secret is that it's not really his power. He's taking advantage of like an old woman who's sort of like sedated and stuff, and tells him and the calculations and everything. So that's how he does stuff. But no one really knows this. So that's their uninteresting story. So the Jedi encounter the Nihil through some skirmishes. There's a character called Bel Zettifar, who's just one of the million Jedi that you meet in this book, and he's like, you know, a Padawan, and his master is called Loden Greatstorm, and awesome name. Loden Greatstorm is a wise old Jedi. He tries to burrow deeper into what the Nihil are. He gets captured, and that's basically the book. I didn't like this book because I felt that the problem solving and everything felt more Star Trek-ish to me. There's no swashbuckling here, and since there are no main characters, I really don't know who I'm following. I think the idea is that you're supposed to pick a character as your avatar and then see the world through their eyes, but like, has anyone who's ever written these books understand what storytelling is? There's no connection that way. This book was written by Charles Soule, but I feel like since the other adult novels are written by other people, I feel like this was their strategy, that the adult novels, the main books apparently, were not going to concentrate on any one person. They were just going to rotate around. Really, you get more Marshall and Rowe than you get anybody else. They try to jam in tons and tons and tons of Jedis, and part of the problem too is this stereotype of the Star Wars name. Star Wars names don't have to be overly blown and silly. It's like, remember when Luke and Ben were Star Wars names? Now it's like Flin Flon, Blue Blonde, whatever. It's like, and it's hard to figure out who the hell is who when everyone has an outlandish ass name and you're trying to like piece it all together. You really need a spreadsheet to figure out this book. That's a big problem. One other thing I forgot to mention, one big part of this phase of the High Republic is that there's this space station called the Starlight Beacon. And Avar Kriss is the marshal of it. And Starlight Beacon is a space station that's floating in the edge of the galaxy, sort of on the outer rim, and supposed to bring peace and law to that part of the galaxy and outside the galaxy as well, and with an eye to expand and bring peace and law everywhere. Now, one problem I have too is that the Jedi, for a time that's supposed to be the golden age of the Jedi, it just seems like there's a lot of them, but they seem really incompetent. They don't know what the hell's going on half the time, and they get their ass handed to them constantly. And this is going to be a running theme in Phase 1. They get defeated a lot by the Nihil, in really like vicious ways. And it's kind of messed up because it's like, I get, you know, giving the hero obstacles to surmount, but don't make them look stupid at the same time. All in all, this book does do a good job of setting up what Phase 1 of the High Republic is going to be. But I don't like the Nihil. I don't think they're interesting. The Jedi, there's too many of them with dumb names that I can't really pinpoint who I like from this. And I wouldn't really recommend the Light of the Jedi, but I mean, if you want to get into the High Republic, you have to read it. So that's that. So it's a nope for me. But I mean, it is necessary to get into the High Republic. The next book I read was High Republic: A Test of Courage. This is the junior novel, so this is for kids. This is for like 12 and 13-year-olds. So what this book is running parallel with Light of the Jedi. So while this disaster is happening with the hyper lanes, ships have to like get off course, and they're blown off course and stuff. And so this one ship that has like characters like Vernestra Rowe, who's like a 14-year-old Jedi prodigy genius and is now a Jedi master at 14. And other characters, like there's a male Jedi who's not as good. And one character who's an ancestor of Stanisaros from the from the Marvel comics, for no reason, but whatever. They're all stranded on a planet which is tough to live in. There's acid rain that burns things and stuff like that. There's not a lot of adventuring and swashbuckling in this thing, and they have to fight the Nihil at some point. The male Jedi character tries to kill the Nihil, and then Vernestra Rowe, the 14-year-old prodigy, stops him, and then she becomes his master, and he's the Padawan, and that's the book. I don't know. I didn't get into this, and the thing is, I get that it's for kids, but like when I was a kid, I read exciting stuff. Robert A. Heinlein wrote lots of boys' adventures where they're stranded on a planet or something like that, and they were fun and adventurous. And here, I don't know what the hell this is. I just didn't like this book. It's slow, it's boring, it's too on the nose. Not a lot of fun adventure and whimsy and imagination here. I just didn't like this. A Test of Courage by Justina Ireland. And whenever I saw her name in other books, I immediately said no, because I really didn't like this book. There's no adventure, there's no imagination, there's no fun and glee in what you're writing. It's slow, it's plodding. I've read better kids' books than this. This is not good. I didn't like this one. The next book I read was Into the Dark by Claudia Gray. Now, this book is the one that has Geode in it, the one that's made fun of constantly. I feel like Geode is just a dog whistle at this point. A lot of people talk about, oh God, it's a rock, and oh, how stupid, how terrible. And Geode's in it for like 16 pages of the book. It's like he's barely in this. He's just one of the characters, and they're trying to be fun and kooky. There are things to be kind of irked at in this book, but Into the Dark is basically, while this disaster is happening, it's running parallel, of course, to Light of the Jedi because it's the same wave in the same phase. These characters in a vessel called the Vessel, led by Leox, who's a dashing rogue, they have to strand themselves in a weird, mysterious space station that's not on any chart. There's no planet around, so they go inside. They explore it. It's kind of a weird station. It's made by the Sith, but whatever. And as a reader reading a Star Wars thing, you know this, but they're like, oh, it's peculiar and all that. They see these stone structures and they have dark energy to them. So they stupidly decide to take all these stone statues, stow them away on their ship, and fly off. It doesn't work out. They have to go back to the station. And apparently those stone statues were meant to keep at bay a real terrible evil. And that evil is the Drengir. The Drengir are these giant carnivorous plant creatures. They're awesome, and they really pick up this book. There's a Jedi character, I can't remember his name. He's just a generic dude. I liked Leox. Leox was cool, but there's a scene in the book where they talk about how he's asexual, and that makes all the female crew members feel safe and all that. It's like every male is a predator or something. I really didn't like that. Geode is just a dumb, fun, stupid thing. It's a rock and you never see it move, but somehow it moves when you're not looking and all that stuff. Geo does save the day at the end. It's really the Drengir that put this over the top. There's a lot of good swashbuckling adventure here. I feel like Claudia Gray knows what she's doing. It's a bare minimum, but looks like shining and bright compared to her peers. I mean, like, I don't know. It's fun adventure stuff. This is actually the best book that I read in the High Republic. You know, I know people carry on about Geode and all that stuff, but it's just above middling. It's pretty cool. And I think in comparison with the other books, this looks really impressive. But, you know, like, if you want just a fun, stupid yarn with great bad guys, you know, Into the Dark is great. The Drengir are terrific villains. They should have been the main villains of this whole, like, phase and maybe even, like, all the waves and everything. I mean, like, the Nihil are just idiots. They're just like they're just like anarchy, and that's it. And then they're like fighting to one up each other and all that. I don't really care about the politics of the Nihil. The Drengir are just bad. They're just irredeemably bad. All they do is they just want to eat you. And they kill a lot of people throughout throughout this phase. So they're cool. All right. So for Phase 1, Wave 2, I decided to forego all the books and just read the adult novels. So for the adult novels, I read The Rising Storm, which was the second adult novel. One thing that irked me about these adult novels, and I suspect, and when I read what the other novels were about, like the young adult novel and the junior novel, it didn't seem like they were continuing the stories and characters that were in the previous novel, and I that turned me off. But I was like, you know what? I'm determined to continue on with this. Let me read the adult novels. They must be the main story, right? So I read The Rising Storm by Cavan Scott. The Rising Storm, I don't remember a lot from it. There's more back and forth and brinksmanship within the Nihil. Marchand Rowe eliminates some competition. Bel Zettifar and Loden Greatstorm. And Bel Zettifar thinks that Loden Greatstorm is dead. Attacks the Nihil. Now the Jedi are holding this sort of festival on a planet, and the Nihil come and attack it and kill like tons of people. And that's the big showcase of this book. And then the Jedi try to fight back. Bel Zettifar tries to fight back in a Star Cruiser thing, and gets literally harpooned by a Nihil ship, going right through his cockpit into him. He decides to fire back at the ship as it's trying to pull him in. So that's awesome. I thought Bel Zettifar was pretty cool. And Loden Greatstorm is killed by something called the Leveler. The Leveler is something that Marchand Rowe retrieved and uses against the Jedi. Now, in this Disney Star Wars universe, I don't think the Ysalamiri exist. So the Ysalamiri, if you don't know what that is, they're from the Thrawn trilogy. So Thrawn spent Heir to the Empire basically trying to get that and doing other things too. Talking with was it Joris Saboth? That's what that guy's name was. His first order of business was to get these little like ferrets that can repel the Force, and they're called the Ysalamiri. So he gets them, and then armed with those things, he then goes to a mad Sith Lord on Mount Tantus, I think it was, called Joris Saboth, and he's able to negotiate with him using the threat of these Ysalamiri that can repel his Force powers away from him. So that's in the old EU. Here, it seems like these writers were like, let's come up with something more badass than, ferrets. It's like, and there are these, like, mountain goat-looking things with Cthulhu heads. That's what the Leveler is. And the Leveler basically does more than just repel the Force. It drives Force users crazy, or at least Jedi crazy, and then starts to calcify them until they die of just turning to dust. The levelers kill a lot of Jedi in these books. They're kind of badass. I understand what they're trying to do, but they're kind of neat. Anyways, a leveler kills Loden Greatstorm, and he's just a calcified, just dusty mess, and he's dead. And that's how it ends. This was okay. I felt like I was really like doing a chore by reading this book and continuing on with this franchise. I like the leveler. It's cool. I'll be honest with you. When I read the leveler's stuff, I felt like I had to read it a few times to understand what the hell was happening. I don't know why. I feel like it wasn't clearly written. But hey, they're neat. Bel Zettifar gets a shot in the arm by having his master die like that, and by being harpooned like that, you know. So there you go. That's The Rising Storm by Cavan Scott. It's okay. You know, like if you were to read The High Republic, that's a pretty decent one to read. So in Wave 3 of Phase 1, I just read The Fallen Star, which was the third and final adult novel of Phase 1. So The Fallen Star is by Claudia Gray, once again. But the problem is, The Fallen Star is more of the same of these adult novels that were coming out, the main novels for Phase 1 of The High Republic. It's just a bunch of Jedi. You know, it's just a cluster mess. At this point, Stellan, I can't remember his full name, is a Jedi who is now the Marshal of the Starlight Beacon, which is the giant space station of light and hope and everything to the galaxy that the Jedi run. And that's because of a whole bunch of reasons. You know, Avar Kriss is off somewhere else, so you have to read other things to figure out where she is. If you only read the main novels, you'd have no idea where other characters are and what happened here. So the Nihil attack the Starlight Beacon and destroy it. That's basically the book. Lots and lots of Jedi die. Lots. The levelers going around the ship too and calcifying Jedi and killing them that way. Some people are still on board the Starlight Beacon while it crashes, and so they all die, but they manage to get some families out. So once again, the Jedi lose. You know, this doesn't seem like a golden age to me. They get their ass handed to them again. Fallen Star is, once again, it's okay. I feel like you don't even have to read all of the High Republic, but if you really had to read the books, you have to read this one. It's a big part of it in that the Starlight Beacon is down. It's destroyed. It went into a planet and got annihilated, and a lot of people died. And the Jedi took another loss. It's like, what the hell am I reading? So yeah, Bel Zettifar, gets his legs back up, and he's recovered from being harpooned, and he's fighting guys and stuff, and he proves himself a solid Jedi. That's about it. There's a lot more nuance there, but I don't really care to remember. The main thing is that the Nihil attack the Starlight Beacon and destroy it. Now, I thought, being the third so-called main book, that this would wrap up Phase 1, and I don't think it wrapped up anything. So that's that. Now, in addition to these books, I also read all 15 issues of the Marvel comic, The High Republic. Not The High Republic Adventures, but just The High Republic, which turned out to be Volume 1, and they rebooted with Volume 2, Issue 1 for Phase 2. The High Republic comics, I gotta say, are the best thing I read out of the High Republic stuff because, and I'll say it, I don't know if this is by accident, but they had main characters to follow. Done. There's Keith Trennis, who's trying to be like a Jedi Knight, and she's a Padawan, and in the beginning she's being, tested to be a Jedi Knight, and she's unsure of herself through most of this. And her master is called Skier. I say it like that because he has two S's. He's Trandoshan, I think. Whatever Bosk is. And Skier is battling something himself. He has a degenerative disease that's eating away at his connection to the Force. But he's not telling anyone this till later. And Avar Kriss comes at some point to help them out with the Drengir. So they fight the Drengir, and they team up with Hutts in like Jabba the Hutt guys in mech suits, and they're fighting the Drengir. It's awesome. The first 8 issues is them fighting a Drengir. It's great. And then they track them down to the main Drengir, the main Queen woman, and they trap them the same way that the Sith trapped them before. Spoilers, if you read this. After that, they have to deal with the Leveler, and that's something that they discover too. Now, all throughout the way, Skier is losing his grip on the Force, and he's becoming more and more dark. Avar Kriss is getting darker. Avar Kriss is being overwhelmed by her duties, and is getting more and more vicious with the Nihil. At one point, she tries to kill one until Keith Trennis stops her. Keith Trennis is confounded by her constant fear of everything. And at one point, she stands back while an atrocity happens, and she beats herself up for that because she's like, why wasn't I brave enough to go stop that, right? It's like, maybe I shouldn't be a Jedi Knight, None of these characters are Mary Sue's. If people complained about Avar Kriss being a Mary Sue, no way. The characters were given a lot to chew on for their own their own personality and everything, and a lot to do as well. There are other Jedi. I can't remember. There's these twins that that know each other's thoughts and feelings and everything. I don't care about those guys. I think it's Sarat and Tarek or something like that. And you get to meet some of the Nihil. I think Marchand Rowe turns up in issue 10 or 11 or something like that. Really, they're just focusing on the cool stuff of the High Republic, which is the Drengir, the Leveler, these cool Hutts with their mech suits is freaking awesome. Star Wars needs to be visual. And I think that's another big help for this as well. But I think the biggest takeaway from this is that this works, the comics work, because it's main characters that you follow, and they have, highs and lows, and they overcome things. And gee whiz, who would have thought, storytelling. That's why I think that the comics were cool. Now, Phase 2 came around, and it was called Quest of the Jedi. That appeals to me because that's what I thought Jedi should do, is quest and do all this awesome, Arthurian stuff. But I was so burnt by the books. None of them were all that great. I mean, I did say that Into the Dark was good, but in comparison to everything, the comics were cool. So I bypassed all the books and just went straight into the comics. So here's the problem. Phase 2 takes place 150 years before Phase 1. So any characters or concepts or cool things that you liked from Phase 1 are probably not going to be in Phase 2. So that was another browbeater. I was like, well, I mean, I put all this effort in, and now you take it all away and say this other thing. And that sort of left me crestfallen. But I did read the 10 issues of Volume 2 of The High Republic from Marvel Comics, the ongoing series. Star Wars The High Republic Volume 2 from Marvel Comics ran 10 issues it all takes place on Jeddah, which is the planet and city in that planet of the same name from Rogue One, with that fallen statue and everything. It gets annihilated by the proto Death Star. Basically, this is the story of the Battle of Jeddah, which isn't much of a battle, it's more of a riot. And it features a character named Vildar Mak, who is a Jedi who, when he was a kid, was attacked by a Darksider who killed his entire village and almost killed him until a Jedi came and rescued him and attacked the Darksider. Vildar Mak grows up with that fear, and he heads to Jeddah to confront his fear, to figure himself out, to sort of abandon his ways as a Jedi, which is a weird place to go because it's Jeddah. He meets a character named Maddie, and they're basically taking part in the Convocation, which is like a big festival of all these Jedi, and the city of Jeddah has all sorts of different Jedi that wouldn't call themselves Jedi. They're like Force users that look at the Force in different ways and bicker amongst themselves as to what the Force is. Along the way, they meet a character named Tay Sirik, who the Temple of Wills hates, but apparently he is a good Samaritan, and in helping characters and breaking free of, like, alien trafficking or human trafficking or whatever you want to call it in the Star Wars world, he goes against a lot of the Temple Order's wishes and everything, and he's disbanded, and then he's sort of like a smooth-talking, wisecracking dude. These three are great. I like those characters. The 10 issues are okay. It just feels all claustrophobic because they don't go anywhere. It's just Jeddah City. There's a character called the Herald or whatever that comes in and uses a leveler from Phase 1. So it's sort of like the beginnings of that thing, I guess. And all the Jedi go crazy, and he stirs dissent in the common crowd of Jeddah City, and there's a riot, and some of the rioters pull down the statue on the outskirts of the city, the statue that you see in Rogue One, that's on the ground. Turns out that inside that statue is a cache of all sorts of like Sith weaponry and other weaponry that's fairly dangerous. One glove gives you the powers of Palpatine's lightning and all that stuff. It's kind of neat. And so Vildar Mak encounters these guys that are trying to steal all his stuff. And there's that Herald guy, and he fights that Herald guy, and all these guys. I think they're called the empty hand or something like that. I can't remember, man. But they believe that there should be no Force and stuff. And I think you're supposed to be led to believe that these guys eventually become the Nihil. So there's elements throughout Phase 2 that lead up to Phase 1. It's a prequel thing, and I don't know why they did that. I think it really undercut any enthusiasm for the High Republic. I really think so. I mean, it cut my enthusiasm. It was tough to maintain enthusiasm when there are no main characters through book. So there you go. I'm getting too much into the negatives. I'm going to save that for later. The High Republic Volume 2 for Phase 2 from Marvel Comics was pretty cool. I like the three characters. They really gelled everything together, which is what characters should do in a story. So that was neat. Is it necessary to read? Not really. So yeah. All of this doesn't give me a lot of enthusiasm to read the rest of Phase 2. So the comics is really what I stopped with. I started and stopped with Volume 2 of the High Republic from Marvel Comics. Okay, now is the moment you've all been waiting for. If you have been waiting for it, probably not. Um, what's good and what's bad about the High Republic? So, what's good? I have my notes here. There aren't a lot of good points here. Okay. Um, I love the Drengir. I thought the Drengir were cool villains. Big carnivorous plant creatures that they talk too. So when they talk, they're like, "Oh, fleshling, I'll kill you and everything. I'll eat you and all that stuff." They're great. They're irredeemably bad, and that's a plus in Star Wars. There's no sort of like inner search as to whether or not you should kill them or defeat them. It's like they're bad guys. Like you gotta do it, and they're formidable looking. When they had sketches of them, I know this is a publishing, like initiative, but yeah, I thought Drengir were awesome and should have been the main villains here. The Leveler is cool. I know it's just the Ysalamiri on steroids, but they're neat. They're vicious. They kill a lot of Jedi. There's a lot to kill, so they're pretty cool. They kind of overpower them here, but like they are formidable foes, so they make quite an impression. Characters are interesting. Well, sorry, not really. Characters with interesting stories, when they're allowed to be told, I guess is the best way to say this. All the characters are pretty blah because there's so many of them and they can't really concentrate on anyone, right? But there are a few that get a shine, mostly from the comics. So Vildar Mac is cool. Characters that have chips on their shoulders, fallible characters, flawed characters that are interesting. Keith Trennis is neat. Ivar Chris, when I got to know her better and not from the big boring books, where she turns up and just is another one of the characters. In the comics, she gets a chance to be vulnerable, make mistakes, slip a bit and come back. It's awesome. That's a great character. I like Belzetifar after he got harpooned. It was awesome. Because then he comes back from that. That's what you want. You ding them a bit, you ding them a bit more, and then they come back, and then you root for that. That's awesome. That doesn't happen a lot in a lot of these books because there's so many other crappy characters and concepts they gotta throw at you. It seems like I don't know if they don't know how to write characters or they had so many characters they're throwing at you, and I don't know if they're just fodder for the leveler or what, but like the few characters that shone, I liked them. That was cool. I like the designs of the ships. And this is from like the sketches. They had a bunch of you if you look up High Republic and just like click on images, there's a lot of cool stuff. There are boring character just one shots and stuff, but there are a lot of like sketches of the environment and the creatures and the ships and all that stuff. I liked all that stuff. It's pretty cool. No, I did not buy the art of the High Republic. It's expensive. I'll buy it when it's marked down. It's gonna be marked down. I know that. So that's the good for now. Oh, you know what? One more good thing is just the concept of all of this. An uncharted era opened up a lot of possibilities and imagination, at least in me, not necessarily in the writers. So the possibility of High Republic is good. The possibility. All right, the bad of the High Republic. What's bad about the High Republic? What's a negative? Hoo boy. The list here is longer in my notes. Okay, there's no main character to follow. From book to book to book, some books have main characters, and then the next book doesn't. I'm gonna get to some of that, but there's no character to really follow. I don't know. It's like when I read the comics, I was like, now I feel like I'm in safe hands here. I'm in expert hands because there's main characters here, and you follow them for the whole comic series. Whereas in the books, it's like, especially the main books, there's like a rotating cast of like Jedi with like stupid Star Wars names, and then you get into the young adult books and stuff, and there might be a main character for a book, and then the next in that format has other characters. And so who am I seeing the High Republic era or this phase through the eyes of? Who am I following? Who am I tracking through the ages of this thing? That's what a story is. I don't know why they went this route. It's kind of crazy. So, there's a lot to say about the confusing structure of this. I went through the structure, and you're probably still confused. So one of the things is it's hard to know where to follow a character or concept that you like. I liked, I think it's Into the Dark had the Drengir. I've mentioned them many times before. I was like, wow, where do they fight them next? Well, not the next book of this format. So where else? It was the young adult book. It's like, well, where else are they? And I found them in the comics, but I had to search. I had to go online, like, where are the Drengir next? And no one really knew. And at that point, the mapping of everything, like the reading order, was really being done by Wikipedia, but it was in progress. And Wikipedia is not Lucasfilm that I know of. I think it's still a fan-run site. So they were doing all the legwork. There was a weekly web series on, I think, StarWars.com or something like that, or their YouTube channel, whatever that is, and Star Wars, I guess. And they talked about the High Republic, but I remember they had a recap at the end of the phase. So it's like during the phase, you have no idea what's happening, and you're there's so many different formats, to pick through, and you have to look things up and see, okay, where do I want to go next? It's like, where am I going? The novel formats don't continue into each other. I touched on this briefly just now, but you would think that if you're reading if there are 3 young adult novels, and they're in phase 1, and they're in each wave, like there's a young adult novel in wave 1, and one in wave 2, wave 3. If you read the young adult novel in wave 1, then the wave 2 young adult novel will continue the adventures of those characters, and so no. And that's messed up, and it's the same thing for the junior novels and the main novels. The main problem with the main novels was that it was just like a gazillion people in all 3 books. There's no one really to follow or root for. Really, mostly who you're following is Marchand Rowe, but he's a dumbass bad guy. Yeah, as I said, there's no reading order. I would have liked a reading order. I mean, maybe somewhere out there is some sort of reading order, but I think that leads to another point. Am I really expected to read like teen books and baby books and articles from magazines to complete the picture here? What were they doing? Like, comic books do this all the time, where there's like 52 comics in a story, and you read most of it and you realize most of it's not, you didn't really need it. This was all over the map in terms, like, there are audio dramas. I didn't even listen to those because you had to pay money, right? It was all over the place. Like, I have one Star Wars Insider magazine from Phase 2 because it was talking about Return of the Jedi. And that's the only reason why I bought that magazine. That has 4 or 6 page part 1 of a short story for High Republic. I didn't bother reading it. I don't care. There's too much stupidness. And what's the incentive of reading different things from different formats when it's all like different characters here, different characters there? There's no one I'm really following from format to format, from story to story. So that was messed up. Uh, One big thing about the storytelling itself is that this is supposed to be the Jedi Golden Age. And they get their ass handed to them constantly. They're constantly being beaten. They're constantly being killed. They're constantly failing. It's like they're supposed to be protecting people with this Starlight Beacon bullshit, like giant space station. It gets destroyed. But even before that, it's like there's this big festival that they're protecting in the second adult novel. And the Nihil come to kill like a whole bunch of people, just like average people that were just there at the festival. And Jedi too. And it's like, well, they're not even, the Nihil aren't even Jedi. What's going on here? I thought this is it's the Golden Age in that there's a lot of them, but they suck at everything. It's amazing. And, you could give me lip service and say, well, but they're great, Sean. We're telling you they're great. Yeah, but I'm seeing that they suck. It's like, they can't protect anybody. They're awful. The Nihil are not interesting. I don't care about their petty inner squabbles, and this one's trying to, like, backstab this one. I don't care. Marshawn Rowe, I think there's some backstory in some damn godforsaken comic. I don't care. He's an ass. He's killed like millions, if not billions, of people, especially with that disaster in the first book, where whole planets and solar systems are being annihilated. Nihil. It's like, what the hell do they want? It's like, it's so stupid. I want the Jedi to kill them, and they should be able to just crush them. But they get their ass kicked. And it's like only because story. It's only because writing. It's like, then the Nihil killed these Jedi. How? They're all Jedi masters. What's going on? It's the Golden Age. The time shift. So, going from Phase 1 to Phase 2, and then time shifting backwards 150 years. I don't care about the backstory of all this stuff. Just tell the story going forward. I think they lost a lot of people that way, because you do that and you get rid of all the characters and concepts that you liked, if you liked anything, and that was tenuous at best. So yeah, that really irked me, and so much so that I didn't bother getting any of those books. I bought the Phase 2 comics. Even then, like I didn't, if you notice, I didn't read any of the miniseries. There were a ton of miniseries that they made, and I haven't looked at the Adventures comics from IDW. I think that shifted. Am I insane? Did it not go to Dark Horse at some point, or is it going to there? Yeah. Just want to see. Oh yeah, and I guess this is my final bad, unless I think of something else while I'm talking. The swashbuckling and mythic, folkloric storytelling of Star Wars is abandoned. It's as though I don't think they understand that that's what Star Wars is. It's abandoned for politics and just bickering among the Nihil, among the Jedi. Like, none of this is interesting. There's no forward propulsion or momentum here. It's like, they're Jedi Knights. Be knights, do knight things. It's like, go on quests. I thought Quest for the Jedi, which is the Quest of the Jedi, sorry, which is the Phase 2 title. I thought that was gonna be awesome, but I read I figured the comic will be the best of this, because the comic for Phase 1 was the best, and the comic for Phase 2 is just like, there's a riot and everyone's like trying to figure out how to calm the riot. I don't care. Someone's stealing artifacts, like Jedi artifacts, and it's like, and it all takes place on this dusty city, and that's it. I don't care. So that's that. I do think I think there's one more that I don't know if I wrote that down here. There's nothing really typifying this era. This is the High Republic era. If I think of the original trilogy, what typifies it is the Empire and Darth Vader, and they're fighting him. The prequels, it's like it's the Clone Wars. The sequels, it's the First Order, and no matter how shit. Here, it's like I don't even really know what the actual timeline of the High Republic is, but it's like they fight the Nihil in Phase 1. Phase 2 is like, I guess, stuff leading up to the Nihil, but there's no Nihil, and it's just all whatever. I don't really know what typifies any of this. Like, what gels it together? What identifies it? What identifies the... Is it the Nihil that are going to identify this? Like, at one point they're fighting the Drengir. And that leads me to something... When they announced that the Acolyte was going to take place in the High Republic era, I was skeptical because I was like, having read a lot of this, I was like, I don't know what that means. And I read it. And a lot of people who don't read it were like, oh my god, it's going to be woke and stuff, because that's what they think the High Republic is. And there's some wokeisms in it, but as I said before, like, once they got to actually write characters, you know, like in the comics, like Avar Kriss and stuff, they're not woke. They've got flaws, man. But my thing was like, okay, so you tell me that the Acolyte takes place in the High Republic era. I should be thinking, wow, are the Drengir going to be in it? You know, the Leveler's probably going to be in it. Are the Nihil in it? You know, is Avar Kriss in it? You know, like, and, like, I don't think any of that's in it. Probably the Leveler. They haven't said anything. They have mentioned that Vernestra Rowe is in it, and she's one of the least likable characters in all of this. And she was in the worst reviewed one for me. And she's like a 14-year-old prodigy, and she's a Jedi Master at like 12 or 14 or something. The actress they got to play her is in her 40s, so she's like probably even more powerful. I don't know. There's nothing to really look forward to because I don't understand when in the High Republic that is, or what that even means. If you said something takes place in the original trilogy timeline, great, Darth Vader's there, the Empire's there. Oh, something takes place in the Clone Wars. Oh, cool, like Commander Cody and all those guys are there. Something takes place in the High Republic. It's in the time of Phase 2 where none of the stuff in Phase 1 is there yet, and it's just different cults, is it? It's after Phase 1, so the Nihil aren't there anymore. I don't know what that means. Because you haven't made the High Republic mean anything yet. So yeah, that's an issue too. My overall thoughts on the High Republic, it's a giant confusing mess, and it's not that visionary. You know, I know that, like, writers came up with, like, there's the Drengir and there's the Nihil, and they plot out, you know, the series of events. But what's the vision here? It's like, it seems like you just do things for spectacle's sake. It's like, yeah, I know we have to have a big thing in this book, so, like, the Nihil destroy this festival. Okay, but, like, what does that say about the overall story? What are you trying to say? Because the Jedi look like idiots. Is that what this is? What's the overall... I get that, like, you know, Phase 3 hasn't come out yet as of this recording. So maybe there is an overall point to all of this. But, I mean, I don't know. There's no flair. There's no wonder to any of the writing. The comics come close. But it's like, what's the cool thing here? What's the takeaway? You know, I said I like the Drengir come and go in Phase 2. It's like, you know, they're sort of a footnote. And I don't even know why they bothered. It's like, they might expand on them in Phase 3. I don't know. Sorry, in Wave 2 of Phase 1. That's when they come and go. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just a mix and matching shell game of, like, different Star Wars elements, but there's nothing new. I mean, when you saw Jabba the Hutt as a big slug and he's a gangster guy, that's new, you know? When you saw the speeder bikes and they're going through the trees, that's new. And I know that's all visual and that's movies. But what's the cool thing here? You know, like Thrawn in the Thrawn trilogy was cool because he was playing four-dimensional chess with the heroes, and you saw that, and you saw his love of art as he's still a bad guy. You know, like it's like that class and evil at the same time was a new cool thing in Star Wars. What's the thing here? That Marshawn Rowe's a punk that like backstabs guys and other people try to backstab him in this dumb gang that, you know, it's like, who cares? You know, like, oh, the Jedi, you know, there's a gazillion of them and they all die in like different stupid ways, and you don't really get to know any of them. That's your new cool thing that you're bringing to this? Like, I thought there was an idea and a cool passionate vision that they were going to bring to this, and how wrong I was. You know, and that's back in a time, you know, Disney Star Wars has fallen so far so quickly. I still had faith in 2021 when I was like, you know what, like it's 2 years after that Rise of Skywalker terribleness. I was like, let me dive into this. They probably have some good ideas here. They wouldn't do this if they didn't. And all it was just a cash grab. You know, it's like, it's a shameless one too, with like tons and tons and tons of different formats, from like different kinds of books to like the magazines to like comics and kid books. And what the hell are you doing? It feels very cynical, like a cash grab. It's all, if I were to really tell someone what the High Republic is like, it's very meh. And it's the kind of meh that you probably don't need to read as a Star Wars fan. I thought I was getting in on the ground floor of some new ideas, and I probably am. They were probably going to have the leveler and all that stuff in the Acolyte. But I don't know if the chore of going through all this is really worth it. You know, and honestly, this isn't Star Wars. This is like, you know, if Star Wars comes from pulp adventure, the old serials and like pulp science fiction magazines and stuff, you know, a lot of that was literature, and this should read like that, and it doesn't. You know, and I know there's a lot of Star Wars novels and stuff, but like, I don't know if any of these guys have a love of swashbuckling, action adventure, science fiction. It doesn't show in any of this. So that's that. Overall, my verdict, overall, I would say the High Republic is bad. It's bland. It makes you wonder if you should continue on. And there's so much of the bland and the way the story is sprawled out that you have to actually read formats and dumb things that you don't really want to, just to get a piece of the Nihil have backstabbers trying to backstab each other, and they're kicking the Jedi's ass for whatever reason. That's your grand story. That's your takeaway. It's not worth it, you know. Anyways, I might pick at Phase 3 as it comes out in the next coming months. But not. So that's my overall, like, all over the place thoughts about the High Republic. I don't think anyone's really talking about this honestly. You know, if you love it, more power to you. It's tough for me to like, and I love a lot of Star Wars, but this was tough. But I did like the comics; they're kind of neat. So that's it. Till next time.